Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. I am so grateful that last week's podcast has resonated with so many of you. I've had so many conversations. I've had many of you guys reach out to me through the DMs, emails. I've gotten several of my texts from close friends that I haven't talked to in a long time. I appreciate it. And I am so grateful that it does resonate. After I recorded last week's podcast, I had a little bit of that like fear of like, oh my gosh, what is this going to do? How is this going to be, how are people going to respond to this? And yet I still put it out there and I'm grateful that I did. I think it's an important conversation for us to continue to have. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I highly recommend you go and listen to it. But it basically is talking about just the swing, the pendulum that is ever present and understanding where we are at on that pendulum when it comes to our self-development. And just this place that I've seen in the self-development world where we started off being where we needed to kind of work on being a little bit more selfish in order for us to heal and to work through burnout and all of that, and how I've seen the pendulum swing to the other side, which is a little bit more selfish. And I'm seeing a lot of relationships fall apart. I'm seeing a lot more loneliness and anxiety because of this so much focus on ourselves. And it's learning kind of how to figure out what that middle is. And so if you're interested, please go listen to it, share it with somebody else. I definitely want to make this something that is an ongoing conversation, and I want to hear your side. If you don't, if what I say butts up against something, I would love to know more. I would love to hear what is coming up for you. So today I want to talk about something else that, and this again, I don't have really an outline to this. It's something that, again, I feel compelled to kind of talk about. I know I've talked about this before on the podcast. And instead of getting all up in my head and saying, like, you know what, I've done this before, I am just going to listen and say, like, this, I'm compelled. It feels good for me to bring and address this again. And I think it is relevant because in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we had the opportunity to attend or listen to conference. We call it General Conference this past weekend. And it's where the leaders of our church come together and they give us some talks, they give us some inspiration, they help us to kind of realign, set intentions. One of my amazing clients today said it's kind of like a coaching session on steroids. And I was like, yes, because so many times in there, I'm like, they know coaching, they're giving us tools. So it's an awesome weekend. And the thing that I have to remind myself is that we don't need to walk away feeling like we're not doing enough. That's not the point of general conference or any of these kind of things. It's an opportunity for us to reflect and to decide, where we can be better, but also appreciate where we are doing enough. I think we oftentimes, not just in these situations like general conference, but I see this in goal setting, I see this in our lives. There is this dichotomy, and again, it's another pendulum where we can be all in on something or we can be all or nothing with something. There's a lot of conversations happening in the church right now of, kind of encouraging us to be all in, be an all in disciple, be all in on our faith and all of that. And I love it. And I think it is important for us to be all in. However, what I've noticed is people are saying that they are all in on something when really it's camouflage, the way they're talking about it, the way that they're presenting it, it's actually a camouflaged all or nothing. And the way that we know that is because of how they're responding to it, how they're taking action on it, what they're doing with that mentality, what they're doing with that goal. And so I want to kind of bring this conversation to you guys to help you guys reflect back too and let you take stock on where you might be saying that you're trying to be all in on something and when you're really actually being more in that all or nothing thinking. Just know the difference between the two. If you're saying that you are all or nothing with something, right? I'm going to be all or nothing with it. How does that feel? How does it feel? To me, it's very constricting. It's a lot of scarcity. It's a lot of fear that's based around it. Whereas think about all in. When I'm all in on something, how does it feel? For me, and again, that's where you have to kind of test it for yourself. But for me, it's open, it's expansive, it's abundant. It feels very, very good. I think it's interesting for us to even, I'm going to share an analogy with you guys, but when I talk to clients about this and I'm saying, okay, we're kind of diving into, or do you think you are kind of getting into this all or nothing thinking? And we talk about going into all in. One of the things that I think holds people back from letting themselves be all in is this lie that our brain has offered up, that to be all in means we will stop taking action. And there's a part of us that's like, no, we have to keep taking steps forward. We need to keep, moving forward. That's something that we talk about in the church. And I'm like, I get it. I love being all in. I am not taking away action of any kind. I mean, I use the analogy all the time of Mount Everest. If we're trying to get to the top of Mount Everest, we can't just think and feel our way to the top. We do have to take actual steps. So all in, our brain lies to us when it says, like, if we're all in, we're going to become lazy or we're going to do nothing. That's not necessarily the case. So I want to help you guys understand the difference between the two, be able to recognize where your brain might be lying to you and how to navigate from where you might be all or nothing and get yourself into all in. And I want you to know also that if you've been in a place of all or nothing, we don't want to judge it, but I want you to understand that kind of letting yourself get to the place of all in, being in this abundance and peace and openness. For a lot of us, we say it, but when we actually start to practice being it, it may not feel very comfortable because we are so used to being in all or nothing thinking. And I'm going to talk about the differences between the two, but I just want you guys to notice if it's uncomfortable for you to be all in on something and you have a little bit of a fight in you, that is okay. Being uncomfortable is not a sign that you're doing it wrong. Uncomfortable actually means you're trying something different. So all in is going to be uncomfortable for a while. You're used to being in chaos. You're used to being in fear with all or nothing. Being all in abundance and peace, it's not comfortable if you're so used to that chaos, and that's okay. You got to let yourself be kind to yourself, have compassion for yourself as you're doing this. So I want to start off with an analogy with you guys. I've used it here before in the podcast, but I think it's really useful for us to play around with this again. I want you guys to think about a vending machine. Now, vending machines today are a little bit different than they were back in the day. I say back in the day, isn't that funny? Anyways, back in the day, we only could use cash or coin. And I remember back in high school, I went to a very big high school. And because the lines were so big and I was also very lazy with making a lunch, I resorted to vending machines. Yes, I know, I'm super healthy with this. And my go-to, and I hear both sides of this, like, oh my gosh, it's disgusting. And some are like, oh, I get it. But I was that salt and vinegar chip and Dr. Pepper girl every day. And I can't remember, it was like $1.50. I think it was $1.50 for both. So I would always come prepared with my cash, my coins. And when I was committed, I was all in on getting my salt and vinegar chips and Dr. Pepper. There was nothing that could happen that would get in my way. I was going to get it until, right? I was going to keep taking action until. So I want you to think about your experience with a vending machine back in the day. You know how you see something maybe in the vending machine, like, oh, I want that thing. And so you go to work looking in your purse or looking in your car or whatever it is to try and find the coins, the cash that are going to help you get there. You scrounge around, you take these, opportunities to find a crumpled up bill and you're trying to flatten it out. So now you have your coins, you have your cash. You go and you recognize where it is on the vending machine, E4, F5, whatever it is, right? You put in your cash and immediately it spits it back out. And you try it again, spits it back out. Well, if you're committed, you're going to keep going, right? You're going to keep going until. So maybe you take out that dollar bill and you're trying to smooth it out, or maybe you're trying to ask somebody else for, hey, can you give me a new one? Or can you give me some change for this? You keep taking action until you figure out the cash, the coin, you put in the code for it, and it starts to spiral out and it gets stuck. Well, again, we are committed. We are all in until. So even though it spirals out and it stops, you're committed to figuring this out. So you start shaking the machine, you sticking your hand up in there, you're doing whatever you can to make sure that you get it. And eventually, because you were all in and because you're committed, you get your prize. You get the ultimate, the salt and vinegar chips and Dr. Pepper, right? That is committed. That is us being all in until. Now, all or nothing is pretty simple. It's the opposite of all of that. As soon as we have one obstacle of, not being able to find the change, not being able to have the machine take the cash properly, we quit. We were like, yep, it's not perfect, or it just wasn't meant to be. And we just stop. All or nothing is exactly that. It is all or nothing. It's perfectionism. And it leaves us really in a tough place because it is reliant on everything working out exactly as we expected it to. And it's very much based off of the action. And so I think about all or nothing. I find this is where a lot of people get stuck. This is why a lot of people don't have progress, or they think they don't have progress because they're looking for perfection. All in is a completely different feeling. When we're feeling all in, notice what I'm saying there, not doing all in, but when we are feeling all in, the entire experience is completely different. That doesn't mean that we aren't still trying to go for the actual result, but we are more willing to go through the entire experience. We are willing to fail. We are willing to work through all of the obstacles and not letting the little bumps stop us in our path. And so I want to bring this back to thinking about some of the goals that we have in our life, especially coming back from general conferences last week or anything that you might be working through. Maybe it's a fitness goal, maybe it's a money goal. It could be a coaching goal of learning how to feel your emotions, whatever it is. I want you to notice how you approach it when we are in this place of all or nothing. And again, it can be very, very sneaky. Our brain will tell us that, oh no, we're all in, right? That's what we kind of tell ourselves. I'm all in on this. But again, the feeling that's behind it, what we do with the first obstacle will really be the tall tale sign of whether it really is us being all in or all or nothing. So when we are all or nothing with something that we maybe got out of conference, I had a client today that was talking about how she came out of conference, she has all these inspirations and all these ideas, and she's so excited and she wants to work on being all in. But her brain goes to, okay, well, if you're going to be all in, then you're going to read the scriptures 4 hours a day and you're going to study it and you're going to go to the temple 3 times a week. And right, can you hear where she was saying she was all in and how it easily, quickly is transferred over to all or nothing? Because now she's shooting for the moon, right? She is making her actions prove if she is all in. All or nothing is a proving feeling. All or nothing is solely based off of the action and the results. All or nothing leaves us in this stuck place. It leaves us contingent on whether our actions work or where they do not. And it's a very heavy place to be. And so that's what I think we have to start to play around with. So first off, I want to show you guys this model. And I've talked about this before. I actually think there's a couple podcasts actually on this topic, but it's worth reviewing in this case. The world, and I'm going to just say this out loud instead of putting this on the board. So follow me along, and you guys can write this down on a piece of paper if you want to. The world would have us believe that in order to be the person we wanted to be all in, we have to have the certain things, right? We have to have the time, have to have the money, have to have the protocol, have to have the information, the tools, and then we have to do the things, right? It's all contingent on going and spending so much time in the temple or reading the scriptures or being perfect with our protocol or spending so much time in the gym. Then we can be all in. We can be a disciple. We can be whatever, a healthy person. And so it leaves us constantly trying to control everything else outside of us. And so we're always being let down. We're always saying that we're not enough, right? It's very much a not enough place to be. And I would tell you that's the all or nothing thinking. That kind of a model, the have, do, be model, I have to have the thing to do the thing to be the person that I want to be, is very much an all or nothing thinking. And it leaves us powerless. It leaves us hoping and praying that things work our way. And I want to tell you that my thought is to be all in is the opposite. When we are all in, it's not necessarily based off of our actions. Now, again, do we have actions? Yes, I am all in for taking action, but it's not, we don't have to have things first. We don't have to do things first to be all in. All in is a state of being. All in is how we think and how we feel. And that is such a different place to be. So the model that I propose to you to start to live in, if you're wanting to be all in, is the be, do, have model. You got to be all in. You got to start believing that you are all in. If you are wanting to be someone who reads their scriptures all of the time, how would someone be thinking about it? How does she approach her scripture study? So if I think about being all in on the scripture study, then I'm like, I'm just excited to be connected. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm in abundance with it. I am appreciation with it, right? So I'm being that already, and I just love it. When I'm doing it, then I'm not looking at like a certain time frame. I'm not looking for perfection of like I have to do it every single day. It's more of like if I already believe I'm connected, if I already believe I'm all in, then my doing is going to be so much easier. Because remember, again, in the all or nothing model, the doing is a lot of proving. I got to prove that I'm all in, right? I got to prove that I'm doing a good job. With the be, do, have model, then the doing is just supporting the being that we already are. When I am all in, it's abundance, it's joy, it's peace, it's curiosity, it's openness. So when I approach my scriptures, it's so much more fun because I'm not having to prove anything anymore. I'm just looking for ways that I'm already connected. Like, you know what? I want to read my scriptures today because I want to find the joy that's inside of it. I want to see the messages that Heavenly Father has for me. And then I have the evidence for it, right? I find it because that's the way that I'm choosing to live. I'm already being that already. Now take this to something like fitness. If I'm all or nothing, then as soon as I don't go to the gym one day or I have a piece of chocolate, then I'm automatically, well, see, I'm not a healthy person or I'm not a gym person because my doing proves otherwise. Now, if I'm going to be all in on a healthy person, whatever that even means to you, and I think it's so important for us to make sure we always identify that. But if I'm all in on being a healthy person who's taking care of herself, then my actions are going to be so different that even if I'm running out of time for some reason, I'm going to make the time. I'm like, you know what? I can't go to the gym today, but I'm all in on me and being healthy. So I'm going to go for a 10-minute walk. Like I have more options. I have more solutions. I'm still taking action because I'm being the person that I want to be. And then my life, I have a better life because of it. If I am being someone, let's even go to emotional work for a second, right? If I have to prove myself with my emotion work, if it's all or nothing, then I'm basically telling myself I have to process every emotion. I have to figure out all of my triggers. I have to stay in this place all of the time, right? And then I can believe that I'm healed, and then I can believe I'm a whole person. And this is where a lot of people live in the gap, all or nothing, living in the gap. It's a very heavy place to be. And it's constantly living in a problem, right? That's a problem place to be versus again, swinging this back around to it. I'm going to use the term of connection. If I already believe I'm healed, if I already believe I'm connected, if I already believe that I'm a whole person, then how do I approach the stuff that I want to work on, the emotions that I notice, the stories that I have? There's not a problem. They're all opportunities. They're moments for me to get to know myself better, and I move. I am already being a connected version of myself. Now, again, it doesn't mean that I don't go and heal, that I don't go and feel, but my approach to all of it is so different. And when I have those little situations where I maybe don't process the emotion like I want to, or I notice another story that I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought I already figured this out. If I'm all or nothing, then I beat myself up. I'm saying it's not working. It's never good enough. Versus if I'm all in, I have so much love and compassion for myself. Again, it's like that dollar bill being spit back out. I'm like, all right, let's go again. But not from a place of all or nothing. It's like, I know my life is meant to be this process. I know my life is meant to have these ups and downs. If I was meant to be perfect, none of these situations would even be offered up to me. All in is a state of being. All in is a feeling that we have. It's the way that we choose to approach things. And again, action is required, but the action, the energy that's behind the action is what we need to take a look at. So the offer that I have for you guys is to look at, if you guys listen to General Conference, or if you're working on anything else, whether it's your physical, mental, spiritual, any of that, relational, I want you to look at where maybe you've been telling yourself that you are trying to be all in, and you're finding that really that's not true. And you know that by the pressure. You know that by how you are approaching it. Are you living in all or nothing and it's just hot and cold? Or are you all in, which is curiosity and abundance and openness? There is a difference, and you'll know by the way that it feels. Now, if you're struggling you're noticing it, you're like, oh my gosh, I am noticing I'm in all or nothing. I have a habit of getting into all or nothing. I want you to know that's normal. It's totally normal. We've kind of been programmed that way. Unfortunately, society's kind of taught us to do that. We've, for some reason, believe that it's good for us to judge ourselves nonstop, to compare ourselves. And so it's knowing it's normal, but also it's not useful. And so if you are in this place, you got to love yourself and say, like, I get it. I totally understand why I've been in this place of all or nothing. And I'm ready to be all in. And kind of like what I said at the very beginning, this bridge from all or nothing to all in is going to be uncomfortable. You are very practiced in being all or nothing. You're very practiced at this type of thinking. It's not comfortable for us to take action from a different place. Just know that it's okay. But it is very possible for you to make this migration from all or nothing to being all in. And coaching, working with me, is one pivotal way that can help you. Knowing that you don't have to stay in all or nothing, that you can get to all in is a beautiful thing. And I will tell you that you're never stuck in one place. I don't want you to think of like, oh yes, I need to move from all or nothing because that's where I am all of the time. Another sneaky way of saying all or nothing. And then I'm trying to get to all in and just stay there. You guys, we are humans. We are humans. The difference is to learn how to be able to recognize it, to be able to test yourself, have appreciation, compassion for yourself, and know how to move back into being all in. You aren't meant to be perfect. This is all part of it. So even being all in, you have to be all in on being all in. You got to have compassion. You have to have curiosity. You have to be committed until the end. And again, I don't think it's useful to even know what that end is, but it's just like, I'm committed. I'm committed till the end. I know that I'm going to constantly have up leveling to do, and I'm all in on it. All right, you guys, I would love to hear what your thoughts on this. And if you guys have any insights on it, and if you are wanting some help from moving from all or nothing to all in, I'm here for you. I'm your coach. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week.